Welcome to CISO's Insiders Podcast, powered by GRC Consulting. In this podcast, we'll be interviewing leading CISOs and security leaders in the industry for light, eye-level conversations. Here, they share advice and tips, talk about their biggest accomplishments and failures, favorite drinks, key influencers, and much more. We encourage you to walk away with at least one insight that will help you better yourself or your business. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more content, please check us out on social media.
Welcome, everybody, for my discussion today with Jason. Jason Loomis is the Chief Information Security Officer of MindBody. I believe, from my limited research, he's been in the IT industry for more than 20 years now. And out of which I think 10 years have been in the information security space, in the cybersecurity space. Prior to MindBody, he was the CISO of a textile fashion group. And prior to that, a director of managed security services over at ProKarma. And I think before that, he held, as I mentioned, a few executive position in the IT space. But Jason, I'm sure you would be able to provide a much better introduction about yourself. So if you want to jump in and just introduce yourself.
Sure thing. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, everything you said was accurate. Been about security focused for the last 10 years. Currently at MindBody, we're the global, sort of the leader in the global SaaS solution provider for businesses that are health, beauty, fitness, wellness. If you own a gym, hair salon, you would use our software to run your business and transact payments. Exciting place, crazy place right now with what's happened this past year. And it looks like we're on the uptick now. So I think business is really going to be booming. I think people are desperate to get back to gyms and start working out, myself among them. Been in IT for the last 20 years and originally hailed from the Bay Area, California. And I'm now been living in LA.
Nice, and thank you for that. And I've been waiting for the gyms to open up as well. I think they closed my gym probably more than a year ago now. And I miss swimming and sitting in the sauna from time to time. Thank you for that. And I usually start off with a couple of icebreaker questions. I typically ask about your marital status and then about your favorite drink.
Oh, great. Yeah, two great questions. Well, yes, I'm glad my wife hears this. She'll be happy that I just said two great questions. I was married during COVID, so I'm recently married. I got married last summer. It was a double-edged sword. So on one hand, we got to do it cheap because of COVID. But then on the other hand, a lot of people we wanted to invite and come celebrate. We couldn't. We kept it really small, under 10 people on the beach here in Manhattan Beach.
Yeah.
In LA. Been married for a year, been with her for about 4, and everything's going swimmingly. Favorite drink? Does coffee count? Coffee doesn't count. I'd have to go Japanese whiskey.
Oh, nice. Japanese whiskey. Okay, great. I didn't try too many of those, but the ones I tried were nice. I still prefer the Scottish single malt, but I might have, I'm sure there are nice brands out there of Japanese whiskey as well.
And after my third, fourth, I can't,
Yeah, you don't really care. You can revert to Johnny Walker, probably Red Label even. Okay, let's dive right in. So I'm gonna run you through a series of questions that we feel are useful, in providing some insights into the mind of a CISO. And again, the goal here is to allow some clarity and be able to connect you with both your peers and even to allow some vendors, some insights into the mind of a CISO and specifically you, because we know there's a gap in that space, and I think we'll touch on it later on. So let's start with the first one. What's the one thing you wish you'd known before you begin your career?
This is like that question. I should have listened to my mother. Probably I should have gone into plastic surgery. No, seriously, probably the importance of leadership and the responsibility that comes with it. I don't think I learned that until later in my career. When I was starting, I looked at technology management in leadership like I did tech in general, like kind of like a formulaic process where you have expected inputs, you're going to expected outputs, and I really lacked understanding the human side of the equation. That you got to understand the need for empathy, compassion, and just doing the right thing.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty evident in IT as well as information security. Maybe less nowadays because I feel personally that the market have matured. But, if you go 20 years back, I think IT people, talking with IT, uh, and as you just mentioned, I think, for lack of better word, maybe empathy was not their strong suit. And also with the information security practitioners as well, because it was the naysay culture back then. I think it's less
absolutely.
of that nowadays.
Yeah. The hammer of compliance was used,
Yes,
a lot more than it is now.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the best case scenario, because a lot of the times you got answers like, okay, can I do that? And the answer was just a simple no. And why not? Well, just no.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want you to have this and that port open to the internet for any reason, but sure. Okay. Moving on to, it's my personal belief that people fail more from failures than from accomplishment. If there's any biggest failure that you wanted to mention or talk about here, and what did you take out of it, basically?
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I fail a lot. I've failed more than I've succeeded in my career, but there's a good quote I have. It's on a t-shirt I own. It's Nelson Mandela. He says, "I don't lose. I either win or I learn." So every failure has gotten to me where I am. If I didn't have those failures, I wouldn't be who I am. For a single, biggest failure in my career was one where I pulled a friend off a great paying job to work for me, and then was told to fire him and my entire team 6 months later.
Mm.
And while I was being told to get rid of him and the team, it was my failure for not being keyed in enough with senior leadership to see it coming. I shouldn't have been that blind to it. It was my fault of letting that happen and letting me hire him when I wasn't really aware of what was going on at the back end of the business. So I take full responsibility for that.
Yeah. Okay. I actually had a similar experience.
Yeah.
And having touched on that, what would you say your biggest accomplishment was?
Probably, on a high level, very simply, is anybody who's ever worked for me that went on to bigger, better things. That's a simple answer. Something more tangible. It's boring and dry, but I am very, 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 very proud of the policies and standards that I rewrote here at MindBody, because it was the first time I actually got to re-architect them from scratch. And I went from, I think policies should be very simple, easy to understand, where a fifth grader can read them and yet be measurable. And so I reduced what was a 500-page, which I'm sure in your career you've seen, those 500-page policies that are from a template and written by either an auditor or legal, and was able to reduce it. Our policies now are 2 pages and about 400 words. And then I have a set of standards that are even simpler to understand. They're a little bit longer, but they're measurable. So that's probably like a tangible accomplishment that I'm proud of.
Okay, let me challenge you a bit. What do you consider a bigger accomplishment? The former or the latter?
The former, easy.
Okay, yeah.
Success of others.
Yeah, and I just wish. I think I just had a conversation about that with my co-founder. For the past 12 years since establishing since founding this company, I think I've helped a lot of individuals that, came through the doors and, started off as consultants, and at some point they matured, and, some of them, they hold the CISO role, others, they hold some other prominent roles in the information security space. And I just wish there was a way of having an honest conversation with some of your employees that, that want to proceed but don't share it with you, because they have this fear that you might, try to hinder their progress or anything like that. And I'm with a state of mind that, you should help people accomplish what they want to accomplish. And I'm also always more than happy to help out like current employees and former employees to progress and land on in land new and exciting positions. So definitely, I mean, personally, I think I'm not sure if this would be my biggest accomplishment, but I can totally relate to that, to what you said.
Good. Yeah. Wait. Yeah. You. I live by the creed, and I've done this at every job I've had the authority and the ability to for the last 3 is. If I don't have a role for you and I don't have a position, I will write your recommendation letter, and I will happily want you to go make more money with more responsibility and do what you love and what you're passionate about than have to keep you with me in a heartbeat. And yeah, the company takes a hit, my department takes a hit, my team takes a hit, but I want what's best for you. And I think that's why people, hopefully, one of the many reasons I hope people want to work for me.
Yeah. Okay. And that makes sense. And what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours?
It goes back to sort of what I wish I knew getting into this job is that I think the skills that make you successful in security aren't the skills you would think. I think, 10 years ago, I got to understand technology to be a good security practitioner. And it's not. It's about people, number one, leadership, organizations, the ability to communicate, understand motivation, and the ability to lead and build teams.
Yeah. And I think it's more prominent nowadays because the CISO position has transformed into a business role as opposed to a technical or IT related role. I think that's just my personal belief.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
And what do you feel about, and I know you came from IT, and some CISOs, they report to IT related functions, others report directly to other C-level executives, might even be the CEO in some cases. But what do you personally feel about the role of a CISO that's actually part of the IT organization?
And that's a really good question, because I know there's it feels like there's some shifting going on with that. I'm a fan of it not reporting into tech, but there are some pros and cons to it. When you report into tech, some of the pros are you're close to the tech, which is where you get a lot of your work done. So when I have to get stuff implemented, obviously a lot of security is focused on technology. Yeah, I've got people in process. Even those processes are going to be usually around the technology department. So being part of that team makes it a lot easier to get stuff done versus being only a second line, if you're familiar with 3 lines of defense, versus being sort of a second line CISO, not having your own first line team. You get most of the risk reduction, I think, out of tech. I get a lot out of training and security awareness and some other, but if you can reduce the risk with tech, it tends to get a lot more out of it. And then another idea about the pro is having your own first line. If you're tech, you usually will have your own first line team. Mm-hmm. Some of the cons are, there's a lot. You're at the mercy of product. So especially in tech companies, they're usually product-driven companies, and product drives engineering, not necessarily the other way around. So that's tough, that challenge. And then, the constant challenge of budget, where a tech organization is either driven by revenue generation or cost reduction. And my function is risk reduction, which isn't either of those. So bonuses, compensation for tech is always tied to, okay, we're going to make more money or we saved money, not how much risk we reduce. So I'd love to see a change. The con is that there's no KPIs for people with my level in tech for risk reduction. That's sort of a really big con with it that I see.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I know there are a few frameworks out there that some organizations use. I think one of them is FAIR, where you actually So I guess you're familiar with that, right? Where
I am. I don't use it here. Would love to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah, so I think they help you quantify the risks, and that's being able to present better like the ROI of security. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it goes back to leadership and to the understanding of, is cybersecurity is a part of business, and does it need to be an integral part of the business? And I do see the shift in that space, I have to say, for the past few years. I think more and more organizations understand that cybersecurity is more than just having a few a few professionals running around and trying to patch stuff out.
And actually, yes, that is a great description, because that is literally what I felt like 7-8 years ago. Hey, let's just hire a couple security people and they'll fix all our problems. And, to be honest, there's still a lot of companies that operate like that, but
Okay. And maturing from the IT into the cyberspace, and even before that, what would you say were the best resources that have helped you, define who you are right now in terms of like the professional skill set that you hold?
Yeah, it's not cyber specific again, or even tech specific, but I'm a big fan of education, and my MBA was probably the most powerful tool that started me off on the path to understanding how business and technology connect, or where they connect, and what that intersection looks like. There's books that I could rattle off: Switch, Chip and Dan Heath, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team; Drive by Daniel Pink; Why Great Leaders Don't Take Yes for an Answer is another great book. The Culture Code, Infinite Game by Simon Sinek; Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink and Leaf, I think, the one about the Navy SEALs. Those are just that's almost like an MBA in a box. You can get those 5 books, you probably know 80% of what I've learned with leadership and management.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting. Some of the CISOs I talk with, they're very technical oriented. So, they are, very, I'm not saying against education, but very pro self-educating themselves. No certifications, no MBAs or even BAs, but, and I mean, I think it goes back to the individual and the mindset that you're in. And from what I'm hearing so far, you're very focused on the leadership aspects and the executive aspects, wanting to learn more. And you mentioned Simon Sinek, which is probably one of, I'm not sure if I want to call him a marketing guru, but he's very prominent, and whenever I listen to him, it just makes sense. So,
and I'll say it's because the tech comes easy. I started. I didn't have my degrees when I started in tech. I was a computer gamer, putting together. I worked Doom and Duke Nukem, on Windows 3.1.1 work groups with BNCs, putting them together. Wanting to play games, and tech just. To be honest, I've always been a tech whiz. Always been until now. When I was an engineer or even leading engineering teams, man, I was the one that they came to solve the problem. So to be honest, to me, tech was the easy part of it. The hard part is the people and the organization and the leadership.
Yeah. And you mentioned Duke Nukem. That came pretty late in my life. I think I was already 15 or 16, but I started off playing King's Quest when I was in 3rd grade, I think. I'm not sure if you're
I'm not familiar. Is that like an Apple IIe game? Was it after that? Was it Windows?
So there was a period in time in history of computing when they just had they even had only the screens were only, the monitors were only CGA at the time. So there were all kinds of quests like King's Quest, Space Quest, and so on. There was a company called Sierra back then.
I remember Sierra.
Yeah, so they had that, and this was actually, so the first time I actually had to write in English on my keyboard to key in English. That was when I was playing that game as I think it was the 3rd grade, maybe 4th.
Wow.
But, yeah, but and Duke Nukem, I think it came later, along with Doom, and there was another one, Castle Wolfenstein. Not sure if you.
Yeah, I remember Wolfenstein.
Yeah. Okay.
I stated myself for you listeners.
Yeah, same here. I think we're probably the same age, or at least in the same ballpark. Okay. Do you have a few? And you mentioned education, but do you have a few, maybe specifically 3 individuals that you wanted to that you can think of that have been the most influential to you?
I think everybody answers my parents, obviously. I think everyone has that. My parents were. Outside of that, yeah, probably my old CEO at Textile, Adam Goldenberg. He had these 2 core traits that I just respected. He was kind of like the Jack Welchy type of CEO where He knew everything about the business. I remember my first meeting with him. He would jump from it was a big team group strategy meeting. He'd go jump from a conversation about the size of the corrugate in the shipping containers to save money down to hitting me literally not 5 minutes later about how much we're spending monthly for rack space. And he knew everything about the business and was able to talk down in the details about it. Mad respect for that level of intelligence and knowledge about the business. And then he was so empathetic and so people first, take care of the employees first, that that isn't that. I think a lot of CEOs will talk a big game, but do they really believe that is another story. He really believes that. I think I respect him for that. And then the CTO over there was awesome. He taught me just to be, as a tech leader, his name is Tim Collins. He's the CTO, still the CTO over there. Taught me how to just, to be cool. Like not everything's that serious. Just like every time he talked, I was like, hey man, what's up? And sharp as shit. Like just he knew all the tech, but it was never went to his head. I think I learned that from him too. Don't let it go to your head.
Okay, thank you. Is there one common myth about the profession that you wanted to debunk?
Oh yeah, yes. And it's a famous quote. I'm positive you've heard it, or everybody on this call who knows cybersecurity. It's to this day I still get this. It's Bruce Schneier. If you think technology is going to solve your security problems, you don't understand security and you don't understand technology. The idea that you can, hey, if you just throw tech at it, all our security problems are solved. It's not. It's people and process first, tech third.
Can you tell me, like, from your experience, and it doesn't have to be like based on your specific and current role nowadays, but it could be related to industry trends. But in your opinion, what are the main concerns that CISOs nowadays face?
Cloud misconfiguration, I think, is probably a priority for, I would say, the majority of CISOs now because of the big move to the cloud. And along with that goes, and it's crazy that if you're familiar with the CSC 20, it's still number 3 on the list, is vulnerability management. It goes hand in hand with that cloud misconfiguration.
Yeah.
Those are the biggest concerns.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've also heard a lot about supply chain security from other CISOs.
Yeah, I'm not sold on that. I think it's the flavor of the year, flavor of the week because of the recent breaches. I mean, honestly, if anybody could say we saw SolarWinds coming or we could have caught that if we did good due diligence for SolarWinds, no way. Every third-party risk, and I run a pretty mature third-party risk management program where we go through an entire process where we analyze and determine if the vendor is risk or not. We wouldn't have caught SolarWinds. They're used by every major company in the federal government. So, so just my personal opinion is I think it's just kind of the flavor of the week to talk about. Always there's going to be risk, and understanding where your data is going to and what other parties have access to your data absolutely is critical. But I don't know if it's like necessarily moving up my list of priorities with everything I have going on.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. Did you want to, enlighten us, maybe share a bit about your daily routine?
Sure. So I work at MindBody. Mm-hmm. Health and wellness is kind of core to what we do, and it just fit, like that's part of the cultural fit that I have there. So I really try to take care of my body. So I mentioned with COVID, I'm waiting for the gym to get open. I got lucky too, though, as I was able to build a gym in my garage right when COVID hit. Just good timing, and I don't know if everybody else remembers, but trying to buy gym equipment right when COVID hit, everything was sold out. I was able to get some stuff. So my typical routine, I wake up at 4:15 a.m. I'm in the gym by 5 o'clock after a shower and coffee. Yes, I'm one of those weird ones that showers before the gym.
Before the gym.
Wake-up process. I watch last night's news while I run, NBC Nightly News. I then listen to my favorite podcast, Robin Hood Snacks, which is a kind of a financial summary of the previous day. And then I'll do my podcast of choice, security-based. Either I like CISO Talk, The Business of Cyber, CyberWire Daily. This is going to be added to that list. And then I'll either watch the news or listen to an audiobook.
Okay. Nice.
Then I work for like less than 12 hours.
Of course. And I asked you about trends in security, and this following question is not specifically about your current role or position, but again, it serves to show like a trend. In your opinion, was there a change when it came to budget planning? Like if you compare 2019 and 2020 to 2021?
I mean, besides do more with less because your budgets were typically cut because revenue was down and numbers are down across the board. Um, I think there's a bigger focus. Obviously, there was a bigger focus. Not obviously, there's a bigger focus on the zero trust. So remote access, zero trust, being able to support the diverse workforce across the globe. I think is where a lot of spending shifted into.
Yeah, because remote workers, right?
Yes.
I mean, because working mostly remotely. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Now, if you can put yourself for a minute, and I'll ask you now a few questions about vendor and vendor relationships here. If you put yourself in the shoes of a vendor just for a moment, what is it that you, like? What promise do you make to yourself that you would say, I would never do that if I were a vendor?
It's a good question. I don't know how the good salespeople got to me before. There's this one guy who I still work with. His name's Jack Helmeta over at SHI. They're like a CDW type, pretty big, might be bigger than CDW. Still work with him today. He cold called me. I don't know the last time I haven't thrown my phone if I picked up a cold call or let alone took a cold call. I don't even know if they cold call anymore. It's such an old school technique. But I don't really, the things I don't care about your company history. I care about what solution you have. The tech and typically the technical part of the solution. Like the focus on that, keep it short, keep it in order, don't waste my time. Try to find out about me, like what I need or what, and I know that's a big ask, right? To a salesperson. Like, hey, go research me on LinkedIn. And I've had that, but you can tell it's superficial. They'll do something like, hey, I saw you went to Oregon, go Ducks. And they think that's like the research of what I might be working on. It's not, but something a little deeper. Like if they know that, if I write in a blog and I mention CSC 20, asking me, how's it going with my maturity with control 1 and 2, or in a company that I work with that I really like, called Exonius, is fantastic. And that's how they got into me, was they're speaking to what a problem of mine I have specifically. And they got in because I was, CSC control 1 and 2 is a problem for a lot of organizations, asset management, both hardware and software, knowing what's on your network. And they were able to say, hey, we solved that problem for you. You want to take a look? I'm like, yes, I would. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, and this is actually in alignment with the most of the responses that I got lately.
Yeah.
And talking a bit about vendors, what's the most annoying sales pitch that you've encountered?
Every cold call I have ever got. That's true, but not knowing the product. The worst part is when I'll get that first introductory call. Like, have your SE on the call for every call, especially I would even if they're not being utilized, even just to have them there available. I don't like it when I have a introductory meeting and I start asking some tough questions about how the product works, and they have to say, oh, I don't know. We can have that on another call with my sales engineer. I'm like, I don't have time for 2 meetings, let alone 1.
Yeah. I see it in my discussions. There's definitely like a gap or a misalignment with current sales practices to what's expected. I'm not sure if in all fields, but definitely with CISOs. I think there's a disconnect there.
I agree. I wonder if the resources that used to be spent into just, spray and pray, like cold calling technique, right? Where you get 1 out of 1,000 that hit. Mm-hmm. But if instead you focus on 5, but you spend a lot more time doing the research and the homework, so you get a better chance of hitting. It's actually a good oil drilling analogy that Shell or BP used. It's like, instead of wasting your time on all the other ones, let's just go for where we know we're going to hit oil and spend all the resources trying to hit that oil. And that would be better. My time would be better spent.
Yeah, but I think it's a big industry, and it came about in such in a certain way, and it's probably going to take some time to change it, like the practice, because you have so many, like in in that supply chain of companies that provide similar services to this, they all work in a very similar fashion, right? So I get it. I mean, I understand what it is that you're saying and what it is that other CISOs are saying, but I'm just saying, like, on the other hand of that, like on the flip side, there are actually like companies that build themselves in a certain way, and now they need to migrate, they need to change, they need to change practices. Okay. Uh, so whenever it is that you are looking for in a vendor, what it is that you're looking for?
I'll go back to the Jack and SHI. It's not even that big. They're just a big reseller, right? But the ability to have one point of contact, one contract, my TCO, my total cost of ownership savings are so great. Being able to go through him to get everything else I need, or to go through them to get everything I need, it's worth the 1 or 2 points I might pay more, but instead of going to like 50 different vendors. I know when I call, I'm going to get an answer. And I know when I ask a question, I'm going to get an answer, and I'll be a top priority. A lot of other companies, I don't get anywhere near the service level I get from that. I guess level of service to answer. Okay,
so level of service, but also, if I understood correctly, you're looking for like to consolidate the vendors, right, into like a one-stop shop.
I like that because it's easier for me than have to go dig up. For example, if I need to fix I have a problem with CrowdStrike. Well, CrowdStrike's a bad example. I have a problem with my Zscaler contract, and I need some help. I don't have to go dig up my Zscaler contact, and I don't have to worry about having a different point of contact for all my different vendors when I'm negotiating contracts, redoing MSAs, NDAs. I can go through a one-stop shop and say, or I'll just go, hey, go get me that guy over at, blank ABC widget company, and I need to get this done. Or I need help with pro services. Can you get me a quote?
Okay, thank you. Are there any other CISOs in the industry that you look up to?
There are. Probably my mentor, the guy that kind of like got me started on my path. His name's Paul Love. Great guy, has written a bunch of books, the walking encyclopedia of security. And he's one of my best friends. I was best man at his wedding. We became friends through our relationship. A guy named Greg Arnold. He's CISO over at Cognizant now. Fantastic guy. Great accent. South African. And he's not a CISO, but he might as well be. Is Gene Kim, famous author, guy that started Tripwire, founded the company, written a bunch of books. I was lucky enough to have worked with him a few times in my career, but now he's like super famous. I think he's in the new Thor movie along with everyone else. So I haven't really talked to him in a while, but I used to be able to work with him. He's great.
Okay, thank you. Certainly look into those individuals. Is there any way our listeners and vendors actually can connect with you online in a non-intrusive manner?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn. I do like LinkedIn. I know. I think you might have mentioned this earlier, but about like how LinkedIn will blow up. My LinkedIn doesn't really blow up, but it's a really good way for me to know if I'm interested in your products. Like if I connect with you, it means one just happened today. So without the listeners, but a company called Blue Lava. When they click to me or they send me something, I will check out and be like, yeah, that's a technology I'm interested in. So I really like LinkedIn. And then if you're going to send me something like an email with an attachment or something, or don't send me water bottles, don't send me swag, don't send me unasked for swag boxes of stuff I'm never going to use. But, give me a white paper that's a useful article that's not a sales white paper, but hey, here's how our technology works, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Personally, I don't believe in that tactic of sending you swag or even iPads or anything like that. I think I don't want to, come off as like too prude, but I feel it's too sleazy.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, it goes in my garbage. Like none of that stuff ever makes it past my inbox, my mailbox, into my garbage can. But a technical white paper that's not a sales white paper that doesn't spend the first page saying, hey, this is why our company's great. Hey, this is what our technology does, and this is how it does it. That's gold to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Before we wrap this up, I have a couple more questions for you. What's the single most important thing to you in your career?
it goes back to kind of like what I felt was important is that, taking care of those that have less than you. To be honest, it's a little more of a life moral sort of morality that I lead myself by, but I also lead myself by that. I lead myself the same way. Like those underneath my care as a leader. I'm interested in their well-being, their purpose, their success. I am not a company man. Never have been. And if you think about it, what makes the company are the people. I am absolutely the people. And if you build it, you trust your people, you take care of your people, they are your company, and you'll have a great, successful company.
Yeah, I agree. And for almost final fun question for me to ask, if you had unlimited funds, what would you do with your life?
I would be off on a disaster relief engagement. So I've worked for this nonprofit for about 10 years now, 12 years. I've been to Haiti, Alabama, Texas, called All Hands Disaster Response. I think they're called All Hands and Hearts. Great non-denominational org that just goes in and you literally just get your hands dirty for a couple of weeks, building schools, dumping rubble after a disaster. I would probably, honestly, if I hit the lottery, I would go do that for a few months, if not up to a year, or the rest of my life.
Okay, nice. And I know you mentioned a few books that you loved, but was there anything specific that really inspired you that you wanted to share with our listeners?
Well, besides those books, I recommend them all. I recently just finished Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. Great read. Everybody knows Malcolm Gladwell. Blank blows you away. His other ones, you're just like, wow, this one is just as much. Was like, I need to go read it again.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you so much for now, Jason. It has been a pleasure talking with you, and thank you again for taking the time, and jumping on this podcast. I'm hoping your insights and answers would resonate, would make sense to some of our listeners, as well as with vendors as well. And again, thank you again for taking the time, and hope you'll be off to a great weekend.
This was great. Thanks, Ben. You have some really good questions. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the weekend too. I hope you have a good weekend as well.
Thank you.